And we found that the more stressed you are, the more magnesium you burn through. Unfortunately, the more magnesium you burn through, the more stressed you're going to feel. So we definitely have this kind of vicious cycle between stress and magnesium that not only affects so much of our life, including how we sleep and how we feel, but it also impacts our hormones as well. So yeah, it's important to work on keeping those magnesium levels high, but it's also important to focus on not burning through our magnesium stores as well.
Welcome to Graced Health, the podcast for women who want simple and grace-filled ways of taking care of themselves and enjoying a little chocolate. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who wants you to know your eating, movement, and body don't have to be perfect. You just need to be able to do what you're called to do. As I'm recording this, I have just returned from a trip with some friends to Los Angeles. Now, chances are whatever you think a girl's trip to LA looks like, this is not what that was. We arrived Friday and hiked about 5.5 miles, then walked to dinner where 4 of us split 1 bottle of wine. Then Saturday got up, drove down to the coast or over to the coast, I guess, where we did a difficult 3-ish miles. Not difficult because of the elevation, but because we were navigating rocks the whole time. It was like hop, hop, step, step. I mean, it was crazy. So I'll put some pictures in the show notes if you want to check it out. But when we were done, we swung by Trader Joe's for some bites and nibbles, headed back to our hotel. We showered, put our comfies on, kept any makeup off, and just settled in to enjoy each other for the evening. So like I said, not a typical LA trip. Also, my perfect kind of trip. Now, I had the foresight, because I knew we were going to be doing a lot of packing. I had the foresight to pack a new product I have been using for my twitchy and sore muscles. I feel like I've talked about this a time or two. I pulled it out and just gave some to everybody. I think it was Friday night and then Saturday night as well. And they all loved it. They were like, where can I get some of this? I learned about this magnesium infused lotion that I shared with my friends from today's guest, Natalie Jurado with Rooted In. Natalie joins the show today with, quite simply, an incredible amount of information about magnesium. You will hear her passion ooze for educating others about this mineral. She provides specific, applicable information about the different types of magnesium and how to get those, how magnesium relates to menopause and sleep. I know a lot of you all are going through this right now. The recommended path to incorporating magnesium supplements in your diet. I mean, so much more. She knows her stuff. Let me tell you a little bit about Natalie. She is the founder of Rooted In, a line of therapeutic magnesium infused moisturizers that actively calm and relax your mood. She is a sought-after thought leader, educator, and speaker, and has worked at the forefront of the wellness industry for over 8 years. She's considered an advocate for all things magnesium, and her mission is to spread awareness of this powerful mineral to all who struggle to live their most vibrant lives. Like I said, you will hear this today. I know you are going to learn so much from Natalie today. Based on what I learned, I actually changed the magnesium supplement I've been using, and I can tell a world of difference in my muscle twitches. And of course, for those times that I need a little extra help, or maybe I hike 5.5 miles and I'm not really used to the elevation, I lather on that lotion and I am golden. So let's go ahead and bring on Natalie. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to talk about my favorite topic in the world, magnesium.
Yes. Well, it's funny. So I used to be a member of Toastmasters International for a while, and it was just a great experience. And so I don't know if you're familiar with Toastmasters, but you come up with these prepared speeches. And so one time I did a speech actually on the nutrient you need more of and don't even know it. And so I came in and everybody saw the title, but they didn't know what it was. And we were kind of chatting beforehand. And one of the more seasoned attendees said, I bet I know what you're going to talk about. And I said, well, what do you think it is? And she said, it's magnesium. I was like, I can't believe you knew this. I was shocked because most people, you're right, it is just not very well known. So I'm super excited to have this conversation. I know you know more than I do, and I love having people who are experts in this. So first, let's just talk about like, what is magnesium and why is it important?
So magnesium it's not a drug, it's nothing scary, it's just a mineral. It's found in our food, it's found in, our green leafy vegetables, it's found in the stuff we eat. It comes from the ground. So nothing scary, not a drug, but what it's involved in over 700 different biochemical processes in the body. Our bodies literally depend on magnesium to survive. It is that important. And unfortunately, as a society, we're not getting enough of this key mineral in our diets every single day. And that manifests as simple symptoms that we typically kind of brush under the rug. So it manifests as headaches, migraines, difficulty sleeping, restless legs, muscle cramping. A lot of hormonal imbalances can come rooted from magnesium deficiency, also overwhelming stress, anxiety, even depression. So these are a lot of symptoms that we kind of just chalk off to, oh, I'm just having a rough day, or, life's getting in the way. And in reality, we see those patterns kind of develop through our life until they get kind of out of control and we realize there's something wrong. And oftentimes it can be traced back to low magnesium.
Okay, now how did you get so fascinated by this? Because this is not something that someone just wakes up and they're like, I'm just going to learn a little bit about magnesium today. So typically we have a pretty strong story behind our passions. And can you share yours?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it wasn't all that long ago that I dealt with a bit of a health crisis. I spent most of my days anxious. I was dealt with lots of panic attacks. I could not sleep. It was awful. I had awful, awful insomnia. And I was checking all the boxes, doing everything that they tell you should do. So I was eating all the healthy, organic, plant-based foods. I was exercising regularly. I got rid of all the toxic products in my life. And I still felt like garbage. So I did what any, normal person would do. I went to the doctor and she was so gracious. She offered me a bunch of different tests. She sent me to so many different specialists. And when it was all said and done, and I had been poked and prodded and blood taken out every other day, when it was all said and done, she sat me down, she looked me right in the face, and she said, Natalie, there is nothing wrong with you. Your blood work is normal. What you're facing is just you're getting old. This is what happens when you get old. And I thought, my goodness, if this is what aging is like, I want no part of it. So it really kind of shook me, but it really was a bit of a divine tap on the shoulder from God saying, keep going. Don't stop. There's something going on I need you to know about. And so I did. I kept digging. I kept researching. I met with, functional medicine doctors, nutritionists, everybody under the sun. And I kept looking. And ironically, I owned a natural store at the time. And one of my customers, I was talking to her about the issues I was facing. And she's like, have you tried magnesium? Just try it on your skin, see what happens. And I did. At that point, I would have stood upside down on my head if you told me it would have made me sleep better. But I did. I tried it. Within a few days, I went from sleeping 2 hours a night to sleeping 6 hours a night. So it was a huge difference for me. My anxiety started going away. I didn't have panic attacks that week. I thought, whoa, 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 there's something to this. But it also made me realize, why weren't people talking about this? Why didn't my doctors, my functional medicine doctors, my nutritionists, why did no one mention magnesium to me? And that's kind of what lighted the fire underneath me, or lit the fire underneath me, and got me really excited about learning about this mineral and teaching others about it.
Okay. So there's a couple things that I'm sure you can see me taking notes. Number one thing I wrote is we've got to be our own advocate. And I think that this is a really great story. And we have wonderful doctors out there, but that doesn't mean that they know everything there is about us. Right. So I think that's a great example and a reminder to be our own advocate. And when God is like, yeah, there's, you can, I mean, I love that you say it was that little, God tap on the shoulder, because I think we've all had that. So I certainly appreciate it. Now, let me ask you this. Is there a way to test for magnesium deficiency? Because like, I know when I get my blood work, there's potassium that they test for, which is another one of those real critical elements. But I know it's not like in a standard CBC, but is this something that we can ask our doctors to test for?
Yes, so that right there, I think that's the crux of the matter. When you go to the doctor and you ask for your standard CBC, or even if you ask the doctor to test for magnesium, they will typically do a magnesium serum test. So serum tests are covered by insurance, 1, 2, 3, easy peasy, right? Unfortunately, about 60% of our magnesium is stored in our bones. 40% of it is stored in our muscles, and it leaves less than 1% stored in our blood. So when we do those serum tests, we're not getting an accurate picture of what's actually happening in our body. More often than not, it shows, oh yeah, your serum's fine, but that's not what we need to look at. So better tests include the magnesium RBC test or an HTMA test. And an HTMA test is a hair test. You snip off a little bit of your hair, send it to the lab, and they tell you not only what's going on with your magnesium, but your magnesium and calcium ratios. They tell you heavy metals. They tell you all sorts of good stuff. So I really like the HTMA test for that reason. But the RBC test is something very simple that doctors can order. Unfortunately, neither of them are covered by insurance. So
Yeah.
I think that's what really holds people back from getting accurate tests.
Well, that's understandably a setback for sure. But it may be that some people are like, I'll do anything. I'll stand on my head, right? Like you get to points when you're not feeling good that you will do anything. So those are good ones to know to ask for. Okay, so talk to us about the different types of magnesium, because I know that there's a particular one. Well, anyway, I'm just going to let you talk to us about the different types and how you use those.
Sure. So if you feel like you might have some of the symptoms of low magnesium, remember it's a mineral, not a drug. So it's very safe, very effective to take. So if you're feeling like you've got those symptoms and you're like, okay, I want to get some magnesium from the store. I want to start supplementing. This is what typically stops people and trips people up, because you go to the health food store, you go to your local pharmacy, and you stand there and there's an aisle of magnesium, and they all are different types and claim to do different things. And it can be so overwhelming. And this is also where people I'll hear from people often say, well, I've tried magnesium, but it didn't work for me. And oftentimes it's because you're taking the wrong type. So here's kind of like a quick and dirty summary of the different types of magnesium so that you can feel more empowered when you go to the store and see which type you'd like to choose. So there's 3 different ways that you can get magnesium. The first is from your diet. That is always, always, always first and foremost the best way to get magnesium. And when we talk about diet, we're talking about your green leafy vegetables, your nuts, and your seeds, particularly your chia seeds, your pumpkin seeds, your almonds, spinach. All of those are great, wonderful forms of magnesium. So start there. Always start there. Secondly is your oral supplements. So your oral supplements include magnesium threonate. Threonate is particularly good for your nerves, for your memory, for anything mental, mental fatigue, for your mood, that type of thing. Magnesium glycinate. This one's incredible for sleep. It's one of my favorites. I take it every single night before I go to bed. It's not only good for sleep, but it's also really good for anxiety. It really has an incredible way of kind of calming your body and your mind down. The next is magnesium malate, and malate is particularly good for muscle pain, muscle spasms, fibromyalgia, and for fatigue. So if you're like me and around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you kind of hit that wall, get kind of tired, you're kind of getting exhausted from your day, magnesium malate is a wonderful option for you. And the next one I want to tell you is magnesium citrate. So magnesium citrate is going to be one of the more popular ones that you're going to see at the store. It's typically found in a powder, like a citrusy powder. Magnesium citrate is good, particularly for anxiety, but if you have any kind of gut issues like IBS or difficulty absorbing your minerals, then it can cause loose stools and diarrhea. So definitely, keep that in mind if you decide to try citrate. And now there's two forms that I do not recommend using, and that's magnesium oxide and magnesium carbonate. Both of those do not absorb well in your system. Studies are showing that only about 4% of it gets absorbed. So that unfortunately is also the most common form of magnesium that you're going to see at the store. It's also the cheapest form of magnesium you'll see at the store. So oftentimes when people tell me, hey, I tried magnesium, it didn't work. Well, you probably were taking oxide or carbonate, and that's the reason why. So keep that in mind, avoid those two. And then the last
Got it.
form of magnesium is your topical. So topical is on your skin. Epsom salts are a prime example of topical magnesium. Epsom salts are magnesium sulfate. They work wonderfully. They're readily available, cheap, just super easy to find. Throw it in the tub, soak for 20 minutes. I tell people to soak 2 to 3 times a week, but realistically, we don't always have time to soak in the bathtub. So another alternative is to fill a basin with Epsom salt and water and soak your feet in it. You can do that while you're working, while you're reading a book, while you're watching TV, super easy. And then lastly is magnesium chloride. That goes on your skin as well. And it's typically found as a lotion or a spray, super easy to use. And it's incredibly effective at raising your magnesium levels.
Got it. Okay, that is really good. Are you familiar with consumerlab.com?
I am not.
It's kind of a relatively unknown, but it's like Consumer Reports, but for
Okay.
supplements.
Ooh.
And so that is a wonderful resource. It's like $40 a year. It is it's subscription only, but that is a really great place I have found to go and do some research on supplements that I'm interested in, because they do that independent testing where they can determine, like, is what's in it what is actually in it, what they say is in it, and all of that other stuff that you kind of like, oh, I don't really know. So anyway, as you were talking about that, I thought that would be a really great place to go kind of do a double check, do a little bit of a third party testing, because it is really overwhelming to stand there, and there are a lot of things with magnesium. Now, let me ask you this: with, you talked about the foods that are high in magnesium, green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds. Another thing that I think is high in it are, correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie, but grains and specifically wheat. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, but grains are so tricky
They
because,
are. I know they are.
yeah,
And everybody kind of has their own personal tolerance level to it. But
sure.
I say that because I noticed when I ended up mostly taking gluten out of my diet, that's when my muscle issues started. And I traced it back to, I was like, oh, I'm probably not getting the kind of magnesium from that.
Absolutely. Yeah. With greens, I'm always so hesitant because they run the spectrum, right? So, like, we could have grains that are enriched with, synthetic vitamins and minerals that aren't always great for our bodies. But then we could also have sprouted organic grains that are great for you and wonderful, and locally sourced and that kind of thing. So I always kind of get hesitant because if I just say grains, then people might choose the wrong one sometimes.
Sure, sure. No, I really do appreciate that. Yes, you're right. There's a big difference between getting some sort of fortified cereal made from a grain and, like, Ezekiel bread, which, I
Yes.
love. That's that sprouted grain type of thing. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a spectrum to that, but that was something that I noticed. Again, it's all individualized, right? And what our body needs and all of that. Now, talk to us some about uh how magnesium helps us with sleep, because I think you mentioned that a little bit more, and I would love to go into that a little deeper.
Absolutely. So this is a biggie because if you don't get enough sleep, oh my goodness, does it mess up your whole life? Like when you're not
Amen.
sleeping well, I mean, everything from your weight to your mental health gets affected when you don't get enough sleep. So important. Um, Magnesium does some pretty incredible things in our body, and one of which is it helps activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So often we get stuck in that sympathetic realm where we're go, 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 get stuff done, that kind of thing, which we need. We definitely need that throughout the day. But unfortunately, we get stuck there. And at nighttime, when we need the parasympathetic relax and calm down to happen, it's hard to kind of transition. So magnesium really activates that parasympathetic nervous system, telling your body and your brain that it's time to relax, it's time to digest and de-stress, and kind of really prepare the brain and body for sleep. But not only that, it also binds to GABA receptors, and GABA receptors are a neurotransmitter that's responsible for quieting nerve activity and helping the brain calm down. So that's always super important. But then most important, at least what I find is most important, is that magnesium reduces cortisol levels. And that's our stress hormone. So there was a study, I want to say it was in 2015, where patients were given magnesium and then they tested their cortisol levels. And they found that it significantly reduced cortisol when participants had enough magnesium in their body. So we see that three-pronged effect of how magnesium really can impact your sleep.
Okay, that's good. So going up to my notes of what that I was taking when you were talking about the oral supplements, if you are already having your leafy greens and nuts and seeds and all of that and feel like you need to supplement and you're dealing specifically with sleep issues, from correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like if you're wanting to add something for a supplement, you should kind of go for that glycinate.
Yes, yes. Glycinate would be your number one go-to for sleep issues.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Now, talk to me some about how magnesium might either having enough with supplementing or having a deficiency, how that might affect those of us. And there are a lot of us in my community dealing with the menopause, perimenopause, all of these hormonal changes that we're having, because this is a hot topic right now with my community.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, menopause, like it's one of those things that we don't talk enough about. It's a change. Our bodies literally undergo this huge change. And it's like this best kept secret. Like, no, we can't talk about it, you know? So I'm so happy that you're bringing that up. Most of the 34 symptoms of menopause are actually the exact same symptoms of magnesium deficiency. So we go back to that. Hey, I'm having a hard time sleeping. I'm having, bone loss issues. I'm having, many of those are the same. So they overlap a lot. And we also find that people who have adequate magnesium levels don't have as significant symptoms of menopause. So there's definitely a correlation there that is quite alarming. So one thing I definitely want to bring up is magnesium and bone health. So as estrogen declines during menopause, we see an increase in bone loss, right? So doctors will often prescribe calcium to strengthen your bones, but what most people don't realize is that magnesium is just as important as calcium in preventing and treating osteoporosis. So supplementing calcium without magnesium, magnesium almost acts like the bus driver for calcium. So if you're supplementing the calcium without the magnesium telling calcium where to go, you find that calcium can deposit in other places in your body. And that's when we see things like kidney stones, we see, calcium deposited in your joints, and we see things like arthritis, that type of thing. So calcium and magnesium always need to remain in good, healthy balance in order for bone strength to happen. So oftentimes doctors like, hey, take that calcium, your bones are having a hard time, but without the magnesium, you're going to run into other problems.
Is there a specific I'm wanting to say flavor, which is not the right word. It's type of supplement. I mean, you were so clear in the different types of them. And so now I don't know about how my community is feeling, but I'm like, well, I want to make sure that I'm taking the right one because I don't want to just add in if I'm dealing with, I'm in menopause, I'm taking extra calcium for bone loss. And, maybe I don't want to take the calcium citrate, which there's a lot of recommendations for, but maybe that's not the right one to be that bus driver for the calcium. So is there one that particularly works best with calcium?
So any form of magnesium that is well absorbed is going to be a good option when it comes to calcium. So the magnesium forms that are highly absorbed are your threonate, your glycinate, your malate. All three of those are really good. Taurate is another one that I forgot to mention. Taurate is particularly good for heart health. So yeah, all those are wonderfully absorbed. Even and don't sleep on the topical. Topical works really well as well. So those Epsom salt baths really go a long way. Using magnesium chloride on your skin also goes a really long way as well.
Okay. And I want to talk about that here in a little bit with the magnesium chloride on your skin. But first, um, just another question, like what kind of, I know that this, first of all, you're not a doctor, right? And like, I'm not a doctor, and we need to make sure that we're not overstepping our boundaries. But in terms of general recommendations for dosages or how much to take, what's your general, like, start here and work with your doctor to do this?
Sure. So the RDA for magnesium is 350 to 400 milligrams a day. But I'm not a huge fan of the RDA's recommendation simply because it was created to make healthy people stay healthy. And if you're dealing with a deficiency, then that amount is not enough to really impact your health. So, doctors like Dr. Carolyn Dean, she wrote The Magnesium Miracle, which is a wonderful book. If you're at all curious about magnesium, definitely get that book. But she recommends as much as twice as much of magnesium of the RDA is needed, especially if you're dealing with deficiency. Then there's doctors like Dr. Morley Robbins, and he is like the grandfather of the magnesium movement. And he recommends 5 milligrams of magnesium per pound of body weight. So a typical 200-pound person would have to take about 1,000 milligrams a day. And that's not just from supplements. That's from food, that's from topical, and that's from supplements as well. But that's spread out throughout the day. And it's a dose that you work up to, not one that you start with. So the next question that people often think, they're like, wow, that's a lot of magnesium. Can I overdose? When it comes to taking too much magnesium, your body will filter out what you don't need. So, and it has this really cool, I say cool, but really funny way of preventing yourself from overdosing. So it's like a fail-safe mechanism. If you take too much magnesium all at once, it will indeed come out the other end rather quickly. So oftentimes people will start with a high dose and then they find themselves running to the bathroom because they have diarrhea. So keep that in mind. Your body will get rid of what you don't need, but it may be unpleasant. So I always tell people to start low and slow, break up your doses throughout the day. Don't take everything all at once. Always start with food and slowly work yourself up through supplementing. The only caveat I have is if you do have kidney issues, kidney disorder, kidney disease, then do not start supplementing with magnesium because our kidneys process the extra magnesium, preventing us from overdosing. And if your kidneys are not functioning properly, then they cannot do that and you can cause harm to your body.
Okay, that's really good to know. Thank you for clarifying that. Now let's talk some about the topical, because I think that might not be something besides the Epsom salts. I know that you do these magnesium infused lotions, and I want to hear a little bit more about that as well.
Yes. So all the lotions that I created are made with magnesium chloride. And the reason I went with magnesium chloride in our formulations is because of a study that I saw, a 2017 study. And they found that giving participants magnesium chloride on their skin, they were able to raise their levels in about 12 weeks. And doing the same thing with an oral supplement would take upwards of 6 to 9 months. So we see that chloride on your skin is incredibly effective. But for me, what I love about it is that you don't have the side effects like the stomach issues. Your body will absorb what it needs through the skin without harm or without any side effects of overdosing or anything like that. So it's incredibly safe. You also can isolate it to where you need it when you need it. So if you're dealing with leg cramps and you take an oral supplement, you've got to wait 20 to 45 minutes for that oral supplement to get absorbed into your body, digested, and to your leg. The beautiful thing is when you use topical, you can just put it on your leg and within minutes you feel the difference. So it is very fast acting and very safe. So I've used magnesium chloride on my children since they were little itty bitty, when they had growing pains or, when they hurt themselves outside playing, or when they slept wrong and woke up with a twitch in their neck, that kind of thing. So I've used it on the whole family with great success. Oftentimes people are like, well, how do we know we're getting enough? Or should we worry about putting too much chloride on our skin? And I always try and relate it to the ocean. So our oceans are chock full of magnesium chloride. Some studies are showing about 30% of ocean water is magnesium chloride. So
Wow.
that's why so often when we go to the beach, we feel so calm and so relaxed and we sleep so well that night. It's a combination of that incredible magnesium and, of course, vitamin D from the sun because we're outside. That's always very important as well. So we see these great effects, but we never worry about, hey, did I get too much magnesium from hanging out in the ocean today? Like our skin does a great job of regulating that for us.
Okay, that's really interesting. Now, I have to imagine that one question going through people's minds right now is, can I use the topical on my skin for my hormonal issues, for my menopause, and to treat those symptoms? So, what would be your recommendation for that situation?
Absolutely. So you can absolutely use magnesium on your skin for those hormonal issues. I often kind of always go back to cortisol because cortisol is just a destroyer sometimes in our bodies. So when we're dealing with lots and lots of stress, it can throw off our hormones, right? The beautiful thing about using magnesium, not only on your skin, but oral magnesium and getting it from food, of course, is that it drops those cortisol levels. One of the things that we often focus on is how much magnesium we're getting into our bodies, but it's also important for us to focus on how much is leaving our bodies. And we found that the more stressed you are, the more magnesium you burn through. Unfortunately, the more magnesium you burn through, the more stressed you're going to feel. So we definitely have this kind of vicious cycle between stress and magnesium that not only affects so much of our life, including, how we sleep and how we feel, but it also impacts our hormones as well. So yeah, it's important to work on keeping those magnesium levels high, but it's also important to focus on not burning through our magnesium stores as well. So not only does stress affect our magnesium, but so does sugar. There's studies that show that for every 1 molecule of sugar, you need 54 molecules of magnesium to balance that out. So what happens when we're stressed out? We eat sugar, so that kind of feeds into that as well. And then alcohol and caffeine, both of those are diuretics and they will leach magnesium out of your system very quickly. And what's the first thing we hear when people are stressed? Oh, I need a glass of wine to unwind. What are you doing to yourself? You're pulling more magnesium out of your body, giving yourself more stress in the long run. So always keep those things in mind as well. So not only how much we're taking in, but how much we're burning through as well.
Okay. And burning through as a function of some of the other things that we may be having, like sugar, like diuretics, like alcohol, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. That's really good to keep in mind as well, for sure. So I have a funny story about magnesium supplements. I have been using just kind of the powdery stuff that you're talking about, the citrate, for a while. I notice I'm low because my muscles get twitchy. And so I will be drifting off to sleep and my muscles twitch. And specifically it's my quads. So it's not like restless legs. Cause I keep every now and then I'm like, is it restless legs? And I don't feel like it is, but they just twitch. And then I wake up and I'm awake for 10 minutes and then I slowly drift off again. And it's like the cycle. So I will often get out of bed. And if I haven't done it already or known, because like right now we're recording this in the middle of the summer and it's so hot that I know no matter what that I have to take it because I sweat so much. I'm training clients outside. Anyway, so I will travel with my magnesium sometimes. And, I buy a big jug of it, which I'm actually excited to kind of try some of these new ones that you're talking about, especially that lotion. But so I took it with me one time and I just kind of packaged it up and left it in a hotel room. And I came back one time and they have housekeeping that comes in. And so the housekeepers came in and they cleaned up. And it was when they came in and kind of tidied up the area, they put your toothbrush in together, all the kind of stuff. Anyway, and I looked over and I was like, maybe I should not have put this white powder in a Ziploc snack size bag to travel in.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I wanted to leave a note like, this is not cocaine. So
Oh, how funny.
that's my magnesium travel story. Like, I need to find a different way to travel with this stuff.
Yes, maybe put a label on it or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I was my husband and I got such a chuckle out of that. Okay, so I've got a few questions, but before I get into that, or a few questions I ask all my guests, how can people connect with you? And this is a great opportunity to tell people a little more about your lotions, because this is really intriguing to me, and I think that my community will want to learn a little bit more as well.
Sure, absolutely. So I created these lotions because there was a huge hole in the market. So when I was looking for magnesium chloride products to use on my skin, I found that using just the plain chloride spray, the concentrated spray, left my skin itchy. It would kind of burn a little bit and tingle. It was very uncomfortable. And then trying to use that on my children, they would scream and run away. So I thought, there's got to be something better. So it kind of led me to look into magnesium creams because it takes the chloride, mixes it with some great lotion, and it doesn't itch or burn or irritate your skin. But unfortunately, the only ones I could find were either on Etsy by handmade, people who made it themselves in their kitchens, which is wonderful, but I wanted something that was very consistent. Or on the other hand, there's the creams that you get from chiropractors' offices, which smell just like medicine. And I did not want to smell like my grandmother's medicine cabinet. So I needed something that worked really well, that was natural, that had a lot of magnesium chloride in it, but that made me excited to use it. And so that kind of led me on this wild journey that I can only say God had his hand in it, because I could not have done that by myself. It took me about 2 years working with 5 different manufacturers from all around the world to create this cream. So it's made with a ton of magnesium chloride, which is why I had to work with so many different chemists, is because we had to find a way to get that magnesium in there while keeping the cream stable and natural. And so it's made with a ton of magnesium chloride, and we also added beautiful essential oils and wonderful adaptogenic herbs to it to really create a formula that works and works really well. So we launched about a year and a half ago, and we've sold out 5 times. The feedback has been just amazing, absolutely amazing. And of course, I give all the glory to God for that, because there's no way that I could have possibly done this on my own. Absolutely no way. So I always joke that I've quit like 5 or 6 times, and I keep going to my husband. I'm like, I'm done. I quit. And he's like, okay, sure you have. He's like, it is definitely God's hand pushing me through this.
That's great. That's great. And I love it too when we know that he's guiding that, right? Like this is something that is, because when it does feel so much more than what we can do, we know that we might be doing the right thing, because only God can make that happen, right? Like that's where we're going to get that push. That's where we're going to get that drive. And that's where the trust comes in, and obedience, because this isn't us. Wasn't us just dreaming this up. It was him. And so if he created it, he's going to make it happen one way or the other. So I love that your husband's like, yeah, whatever.
Exactly. He just goes and prays for me for a little while, and then everything's better.
That's a great. Okay, I've got a couple questions, final questions for you that I ask all my guests. Number one is I love learning about tattoos, because I have found that when people decide to put something on their body for the rest of their life, they often have a meaningful story behind it. So I was wondering if you had any tattoos, if you would mind sharing what it is, and what it means to you. And if you don't, if you had to get one, what would it be and where would it go?
So I have a great story about my first tattoo. So I do have 2 of them. They're both kind of silly, but my first one, I was a very strong-willed 18-year-old, and I woke up one day and I'm like, that's it. I'm going to go get a tattoo. And so I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I'm going to go get a tattoo. You took my older brother for his tattoo, so you need to take me. And he said, that's fair. I'll go with you, and I'll make sure that you're going to a good place that's reputable and has everything's clean. And so he took me. Unfortunately, we did not tell my mother. So I came home with a fresh tattoo that's covered in a bandage, and I come home grinning from ear to ear. Hey, mom, look what Dad took me to do. He took me to get this tattoo. And she looks, and it was on my back. So she looks and she goes, let me see this, and pulls off the bandage, looks at me, yells at my dad, and just whacks me right on this fresh tattoo.
Oh,
She's like, that's what you get. So, yeah, she was not pleased. I don't think she spoke to my dad for at least 2 weeks. And so she was very unhappy with the whole situation, but she eventually came to terms with it and realized it's okay. But yeah, she was very anti-tattoo.
that's funny. I was at a training conference, a leadership conference several months ago, and it was a lot of um, there were some collegiate aged women there and then some of who had graduated. And so we were sitting around and I love asking this question because you just kind of get to know people a little bit better through it. And then there was another woman there who was more seasoned than I was. And anyway, so people would say, well, I'm going to do this, or I have a plan to do this, or I want this. And I was like, oh, cool. And then her response was, does your mother know? Like,
Yes.
I don't know how your mother's going to feel about this.
Well, yes, from my experience, tell mom first. Always tell mom
There you go.
first. Yes, don't get dad in trouble. Don't get dad in the doghouse. Tell mom first. And it's funny, now that I have 2 children of my own, and my eldest is 16, all I can think about is, oh my goodness, if he went and got a tattoo without my permission, I would lose my mind. So I totally understand my mom's reaction.
That's funny. No, we've had these conversations and I've always told my kids, I'm like, if you get one, that's fine, but think long and hard about what you're putting on your body and where it's going to go, because it's going to be with you the rest of your life. So we will see. My oldest goes off to college this year, and I don't know that I would be shocked if he came home with one, but I would still kind of be surprised. So who knows? Anyway, okay, next question. Tell people how they can connect with you and also how they can get these amazing sounding infused lotions that you create.
Yes. So I can be found across social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm very, very, very active on TikTok. All of them are at Be Rooted In. So BeRootedIn. And my company's name is Rooted In. I chose that because I believe not only do we need to be constantly rooted in Christ, but we also need to be rooted in our health. That health doesn't come in just the form of a pill. It comes in a lifestyle, in diet, in everything, in your spiritual walk. So my company is Rooted In, and you can find me online as well at berootedin.com. I do answer questions, so please send me messages. I'm here to help and answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Do you have a particular venue? Like if someone does have a question, you're on Instagram, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So is that they can just go DM you there?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then
Perfect.
if you do have any, I know we covered a lot about magnesium, and I know we got into like the different types, which can be a little overwhelming, and I totally understand. I do have everything written out on a free document. You can get it at berootedin.com/magnesium, and it talks about all the different types and how much magnesium you should get and that kind of thing. It's a really handy reference to have.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Definitely go grab that if you are needing more of a solid reference rather than my notes that I've just been repeating. Hey, real quick, sorry to interrupt here, but there were 2 elements of our conversation that happened after we stopped recording that I really wanted to make sure I passed on. First, Natalie wanted to let us know that magnesium citrate, which has citric acid, can cause our histamines to increase. So this lit a huge light bulb in me because I've been using magnesium citrate and I have terrible allergies. So I swapped to a magnesium malate pill, which I never would have tried had she not educated me on that, because my problem is with my muscles and my allergies have been significantly better. Also, I can't believe I did this, but I forgot to ask Natalie about a Bible verse that she'd like to share. So Natalie offered us Matthew 7:7. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Her encouragement was to pray and be connected to God and have a real and authentic relationship. She said, God isn't a genie in a bottle, but when we are in a true relationship with Him, we may find our prayers are answered even in ways we didn't expect. Okay, let's finish out the episode. Okay, finally, I am starting to invite all of my guests to pick the one simple thing that they would like my community to remember about this conversation. It can be big, it can be small, whatever that you want people to walk away remembering, no matter if you forget everything else, remember this.
Absolutely. So for me, it is derived from my experience when I went through this whole health crisis. And what I want people to know and take away from this is that you should never go based off of somebody else's normal. If the doctor says, "Oh, this is normal," if somebody else says, "Oh, this is normal," but you in your heart feel like your normal is different from that, then go with your own normal. Don't stop looking for answers. Be your own advocate and keep digging until you finally get answers.
Great advice. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming on, Natalie.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for what you're doing to spread wellness and health to everybody. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. Okay, that is all for today. Go out there and have a great day.